October 14, 1930, 2:47 a.m. The campaign bus sank slowly, almost gracefully, into the black water of the Chicago River. Inside, strapped to the driver's seat, was a dummy wearing Congressman William Hale Thompson's signature white Stetson hat. The message was clear. This is what happens when you say no to Al Capone. What nobody knew, what the newspapers would never print, was that Thompson wasn't supposed to be the target. The real target was, and if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, was the man who'd actually refused Capone's offer. A reform candidate named Robert Emmett Crow, and what happened in the 48 hours after that bus sank didn't just destroy a political campaign. It revealed exactly how Capone controlled Chicago without ever casting a vote. To understand what happened that night, you need to understand Chicago in 1930. The city was drowning in two things: Lake Michigan water and Al Capone's money. Prohibition had turned organized crime into Chicago's second largest industry, right behind the stockyards. And Capone wasn't just running bootlegging operations, he was running the city itself. By 1930, Capone's organization grossed an estimated $100 million annually. That's $1.8 billion in today's money. He had 700 men on his payroll, controlled every speakeasy from the Loop to Cicero, and owned politicians the way other men owned suits. He had judges, aldermen, police captains, even the mayor's office in his pocket. But there was a problem. The state's attorney position, the chief prosecutor for Cook County, was up for election. And the current state's attorney, a man named John A. Swanson, had started making noise about actually prosecuting bootleggers. Worse, he'd survived an assassination attempt in August, which meant he was either extremely lucky or extremely protected. Capone needed him gone. The obvious move was to back a candidate who'd play ball. That candidate was supposed to be Robert Emmett Crow, a former state's attorney himself, who'd held the position from 1921 to 1928. Crow was a complicated man. He was a genuine legal mind who'd prosecuted the famous Leopold and Loeb case in 1924. But he was also pragmatic about Chicago politics, which in 1930 meant being pragmatic about the outfit. On October 10, 1930, 4 days before the bus incident, Capone's lawyer, Abraham Teitelbaum, arranged a meeting. The location was the Lexington Hotel, Capone's headquarters at 2135 South Michigan Avenue, Suite 430, where Capone conducted business in a room with bulletproof steel shutters and a bodyguard outside the door at all times. Crow arrived at 8 p.m., precisely on time. He came alone, which Capone appreciated. It showed a certain kind of courage, even if it was stupid courage. Capone was behind his desk, smoking a cigar that cost more than most Chicago workers made in a week. He wore a custom-made silk suit, cream-colored with a green tie and a diamond stick pin worth $5,000. His face still bore the scars that gave him his nickname, Scarface, 3 razor-slash marks, courtesy of a bar fight in his younger days. "Bob," Capone said, gesturing to a chair, "sit down, have a drink." "I don't drink during campaign season," Crow replied, but he sat. Capone smiled. "A man of discipline. I respect that. Let's talk about your campaign. You're running for state's attorney again. That's the expensive position to win. I'm aware of the costs. Are you aware that Swanson's got backing from the business community? The real estate people, the bankers, they're putting serious money behind him. You got maybe $30,000 in your war chest. He's got triple that." Crow said nothing. "I can fix that," Capone continued. "I can make sure you've got $100,000 by next week. Cash, untraceable. Enough to buy radio time, newspaper ads, street captains in every ward. Enough to win." "And in return?" Capone's smile widened. "In return, you remember who your friends are. You remember that Chicago's got 7,000 speakeasies providing jobs for 50,000 people. You remember that Prohibition's a joke, and prosecuting victimless crimes is a waste of the taxpayers' money. You focus on real criminals, robbers, killers, rapists. You leave businessmen alone." The room was silent except for the ticking of an ornate clock on Capone's desk. Robert Crow had spent his entire legal career preparing for moments like this. He'd prosecuted murderers, defended the rule of law, built a reputation as one of Chicago's sharpest legal minds. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. He'd already compromised with the outfit before during his first term, made accommodations, looked the other way on certain operations. That's how Chicago worked. But something had changed in Crow. Maybe it was the St. Valentine's Day massacre the year before, 7 men executed in a garage, blood on the walls, bodies on the floor. Maybe it was seeing how completely Capone had corrupted the city. Maybe he was just tired of being afraid. "No," Crow said simply. Capone's smile disappeared. "No? I appreciate the offer, Al, but no, I'm running a clean campaign. If I win on my own merits. If I lose, I lose. But I'm not taking outfit money." Capone leaned back in his chair, studying Crow carefully. "Bob, I don't think you understand the situation. This isn't a negotiation. This is me being polite, being respectful of what you've done for this city, but don't mistake politeness for weakness." "I understand perfectly," Crow stood up, "and my answer is still no." He walked to the door. "Crow," Capone's voice was cold now, all pretense of friendliness gone. "You're making a mistake. A bad one." "Maybe," Crow said without turning around, "but it's my mistake to make." He left the Lexington Hotel and drove home to his house in Oak Park. He didn't tell his wife about the meeting. He didn't tell his campaign staff. He just went to bed, knowing he'd crossed a line that very few men crossed and lived to talk about. What Crow didn't know was that Capone had made the same offer to 3 other potential candidates. All 3 had accepted. Crow was the only one who'd said no, which meant Crow was now a problem that needed solving. The morning after Crow's refusal, Capone called a meeting with his inner circle. Present were Jake Greasy Thumb Guzik, the outfit's financial mastermind, Frank the enforcer, Nitty, Capone's second-in-command, and Murray, the Camel Humphreys, the outfit's political fixer. They met in the same suite, 430, with breakfast spread out on the table. Steak, eggs, fresh bread from an Italian bakery Capone owned. Capone believed in feeding his people well. "We've got a problem," Capone said, cutting into his steak. "Robert Crow thinks he's Elliot Ness." Guzik, a heavyset man with thick glasses, looked up from his eggs. "He turned down the money. Walked out of here like I'd insulted him." Nitty, thin and sharp-featured, spoke carefully. "We could pull his file. Everyone in Chicago politics has skeletons. We leak something to the Tribune, destroy his credibility before the election." "I already had Murray look into it," Capone said. "Tell them." Humphreys, a Welshman who'd reinvented himself as an Irish-American to succeed in Chicago politics, shook his head. "Crow's clean. I mean, genuinely clean. His first term as state's attorney, he took some money from us for looking the other way on beer shipments, but nothing we could prove, nothing documented. Outside of that, the man's a Boy Scout, faithful husband, goes to Mass every Sunday, doesn't gamble, doesn't chase women. There's nothing to leak." "So we send a message," Nitty said. "The same message we sent to McSwiggan in 26. He was referring to William McSwiggan, an assistant state's attorney who'd been gunned down outside a Cicero saloon. The murder was never officially solved, though everyone in Chicago knew it was outfit work." Capone shook his head. "We kill Crow, we make him a martyr. The reformers rally around his widow, and suddenly we've got federal attention we don't need. Hoover's already got the Bureau sniffing around my taxes. We don't need them investigating a dead prosecutor." "So what do you want to do?" Guzik asked. Capone thought for a moment, then smiled. "We don't touch Crow. We make him irrelevant. We back Thompson." "Big Bill Thompson?" Humphreys looked confused. "He's not running for state's attorney. He's the former mayor. He's talking about running for mayor again in 31. "Exactly," Capone said. "Everyone knows Thompson's our guy. We put him front and center, make a big public show of supporting him. We throw money at his mayoral campaign. We make it crystal clear that Thompson's the outfit candidate." "I don't follow," Nitty said. "Think about it," Capone explained. "Crow's running a clean campaign, right? He's the reform candidate. But if we're publicly backing Thompson, and Thompson's publicly friendly with us, what does that make everyone else? It makes them look like they're also in bed with us, even if they're not. It poisons the well. The voters can't tell who's clean and who's dirty anymore." And Crow gets lost in the noise, Guzik said, understanding now. Better, Capone said. Crow looks like he's playing games. He refused our money privately, but publicly it'll look like he's just another Chicago politician. We destroy his credibility without touching him. It was a brilliant strategy, the kind of political maneuvering that Capone excelled at. He didn't need to kill his enemies if he could make them irrelevant. There's one more thing, Capone said. We need to send a message, not to Crow, to everyone else. A message that says what happens when you're not with us. What kind of message? Nitti asked. Capone stubbed out his cigar. Something public, something dramatic, something that makes it into the newspapers but doesn't get anyone killed. I want fear without bodies. Over the next 48 hours, the outfit's machine went to work. Thompson was summoned to the Lexington Hotel and told he was getting a massive cash infusion for his eventual mayoral campaign. Newspaper reporters on Capone's payroll were fed stories about Thompson's political comeback. Radio advertisements were purchased. Street captains in every ward were told to start talking up Big Bill Thompson. And in a garage on the south side, 3 of Capone's men were working on a campaign bus that Thompson's team had just purchased. It was a beautiful vehicle, a 1929 White Motor Company bus painted red, white, and blue, with Thompson for mayor painted on both sides in huge letters. The 3 men, whose names were never recorded, worked through the night of October 13th. They disabled the emergency brake. They removed the steering column lock. They rigged the accelerator to stick in the forward position. And they mapped out a route from the bus's parking location to the nearest access point to the Chicago River. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. The bus would be found in the river the next morning. Thompson's hat would be inside, making it look like someone had tried to kill him. The newspapers would go crazy. Capone would publicly condemn the violence, offer a reward for information, and position himself as Thompson's protector. The message to other politicians would be clear. Refuse Capone's help, and you're on your own against whoever's trying to kill you. October 14th, 1930, 2:30 a.m. The bus was parked on South Water Street near the Lake Street Bridge. The Chicago River at this point was about 200 feet wide, dark and cold, moving slowly toward Lake Michigan. The 3 outfit men arrived in a black Packard. They'd been told the job was simple. Drive the bus into the river, make it look like an accident or an attack, and disappear. They'd each be paid $500, serious money during the Depression. The driver, a man named Eddie Vogel, had worked for Capone for 6 years. He'd driven beer trucks, driven getaway cars, once driven Capone. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Capone himself to a meeting in Indiana. This was supposed to be easy money. His partners were Tommy Rizzo and a younger guy everyone called Slim, whose real name nobody knew. Rizzo was muscle, 240 pounds of intimidation. Slim was the technical guy who'd rigged the bus earlier. Okay, Vogel said, looking at his watch. It's 2:30. Streets are empty. Let's do this quick. They approached the bus. Slim had already disabled the lock so the door opened easily. Inside, strapped to the driver's seat with rope, was a store mannequin wearing Thompson's white Stetson hat and one of his signature white suits, stuffed with newspaper to give it shape. Jesus, Rizzo muttered. That's creepy. That's the point, Vogel said. When they fish this out tomorrow, every paper in Chicago runs a photo of Thompson's hat underwater. Makes it look real. Vogel climbed into the bus and sat in the passenger seat. The mannequin was strapped into the driver's position, hands tied to the steering wheel to keep it upright. Slim had rigged everything so Vogel could control the accelerator from the passenger side, using a wooden stick to press the pedal down. You sure about the route? Rizzo asked from outside. Straight down Water Street, take the curve toward the bridge, aim for the gap in the railing, Vogel said. Slim already cut through the chain that's supposed to block vehicles. Soon as we're rolling, I jump out. The bus keeps going into the river. Simple. And if a cop sees us? At 2:30 in the morning? There's nobody out here. And if there is, we're just moving a campaign bus. Nothing illegal about that. Vogel started the engine. It turned over smoothly, the big white motor engine rumbling to life. He put it in gear and started rolling slowly down Water Street. The street was empty, just as planned. Most of Chicago was asleep. The only lights were street lamps casting yellow pools on the wet pavement. It had rained earlier, and the streets were slick. Rizzo and Slim followed in the Packard, headlights off, staying about 50 feet behind. Vogel guided the bus down the street, picking up speed. He could see the river ahead, dark and wide. The Lake Street Bridge was to his left, closed at this hour. He aimed for a section of railing that Slim had loosened earlier, a 10-foot gap that would let the bus pass through. "All right," Vogel muttered to himself. "Here we go." He jammed the wooden stick against the accelerator, wedging it in place. The bus lurched forward, engine roaring. Vogel grabbed the door handle, ready to jump. Then something went wrong. The stick slipped. Instead of staying wedged against the accelerator, it fell to the floor. The bus started to slow down. "Shit," Vogel said. He reached down to grab the stick, and in that moment, the bus hit a pothole. The jolt threw Vogel against the dashboard. His head cracked against the windshield frame, and suddenly everything was spinning. The bus was still moving, but slower now, drifting toward the railing. Vogel shook his head, trying to clear it. Blood ran down his forehead from where he'd hit the windshield. He grabbed the stick again, jammed it against the accelerator. The bus surged forward, engine screaming now, but Vogel's vision was blurry, and he'd lost his sense of direction. The bus hit the weakened railing at a bad angle, not straight on, but at about 30 degrees. The railing gave way, metal screeching, but instead of going cleanly into the river, the bus's front left wheel caught on a concrete piling. The whole vehicle lurched, tilted, and Vogel was thrown against the door. It flew open, and suddenly he was falling, tumbling through the air, and then hitting cold water. The shock of the cold knocked the air from his lungs. He went under, the current pulling at him, and for a moment he panicked, thrashing, unable to tell which way was up. Then his head broke the surface and he gasped, pulling in air. He could see the bus, half in the water, half on the concrete piling, tilted at a crazy angle. The mannequin in Thompson's suit was still strapped to the driver's seat, the white Stetson visible even in the darkness. Behind him, he heard shouting. Rizzo and Slim had seen what happened and were running toward the river. "Vogel!" Rizzo yelled. "Swim! This way!" Vogel tried, but the current was stronger than he'd expected. The Chicago River in October was running fast, fed by recent rains. He kicked his legs, pulled with his arms, but he was moving sideways as much as forward. Rizzo waded into the water up to his waist, reaching out. "Come on, grab my hand!" Vogel stretched, fingers reaching, and Rizzo caught his wrist. With Slim's help, they pulled him out of the water and onto the riverbank. Vogel lay there, coughing up river water, shivering. "The bus!" he gasped. "Is it in?" They all looked. The bus was 3/4 submerged now, sinking slowly as water filled the interior. The mannequin in Thompson's hat was still visible through the windshield, looking like a drowned corpse. "Close enough," Slim said. "Let's get out of here before someone shows up." They piled into the Packard and drove away, leaving the bus to sink the rest of the way into the Chicago River. October 14th, 1930, 6:45 a.m. A dock worker named Patrick O'Brien was the first to spot the bus. He was walking to his shift at a warehouse on South Water Street when he saw the white Stetson hat floating in the water, and below it, the submerged bulk of the campaign bus with "Thompson for Mayor" still visible on the side. "Holy Mary, Mother of God," O'Brien whispered. He ran to the nearest phone and called the police. By 8 a.m., South Water Street was chaos. Police cars, fire trucks, newspaper reporters, and crowds of curious onlookers all pressed against the police barriers. 2 divers from the Chicago Fire Department went into the water and confirmed what everyone feared. There was a body in the bus, except it wasn't a body, it was a mannequin. When the divers surfaced, with that information, and if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. There was a moment of confused silence. Then, the reporters started shouting questions all at once. Is this a prank? Was someone trying to scare Thompson? Who did this? The police had no answers. They hauled the bus out of the river using a crane, water pouring from the windows and doors. The mannequin in Thompson's suit and hat was still strapped to the driver's seat, its papier-mâché face eerily calm. By noon, the story was on the front page of every Chicago newspaper. The Tribune ran the headline, "Thompson's bus found in river, dummy at wheel." The Herald Examiner went with, "Sinister prank or death threat." The Daily News published a photo of the waterlogged mannequin with Thompson's hat still on its head. Big Bill Thompson himself held a press conference at 2 p.m. at the Sherman House Hotel. He wore a fresh white suit and white Stetson, looking defiant. "This," Thompson said, pointing at a photo of the bus, "is what the criminal element does. When they can't win through honest means, they try to intimidate, they try to scare, they try to silence the voice of the people." A reporter shouted a question. "Do you know who did this?" "I have my suspicions," Thompson said, "but I won't name names until the police complete their investigation. What I will say is this: I will not be intimidated. I will continue to serve the people of Chicago, and I will do so with or without a campaign bus." It was a masterful performance, and the newspapers ate it up. Thompson looked like a victim, a fighter, a man standing up to criminals. The fact that everyone in Chicago knew Thompson was Capone's man made the whole thing absurd. But that didn't matter. The story was too good. What the newspapers didn't report, what only a handful of people knew, was what happened later that same day in Suite 430 of the Lexington Hotel. Al Capone was furious. Vogel, Rizzo, and Slim stood in front of Capone's desk like schoolchildren called to the principal's office. They were soaking wet because Capone had ordered his men to throw them in the hotel's basement water tank as punishment before bringing them upstairs. "You had one job," Capone said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Drive a bus into the river. A trained monkey could do that. How did you screw it up?" "There was a pothole," Vogel started to explain, "and the stick slipped and—" "I don't want excuses," Capone interrupted. "I want to know why my carefully planned message looks like a Three Stooges routine in every newspaper in Chicago." Frank Nitti, standing beside Capone's desk, spoke up. "Boss, it might actually work in our favor. The papers are calling it a death threat against Thompson. He looks sympathetic. The reformers look like violent thugs." Capone considered this. "Maybe," he admitted, "but that's not the point. The point is competence. The point is doing what you're told, the way you're told to do it." He looked at the three men. "Get out. You're done working for me. Go find jobs washing dishes or sweeping floors. If I see any of you again, it'll be in a box." The three men scrambled out of the office, grateful to be alive. After they left, Capone turned to Nitti. "What about Crow?" "He's holding a press conference tomorrow," Nitti said. "Says he's going to address the climate of intimidation in Chicago politics." Capone smiled. "Let him. He thinks this was about him, about his refusal to take our money. He thinks he's so important that we'd sink a bus to scare him." "Wasn't it?" Murray Humphreys asked. "No," Capone said. "It was about Thompson, about making him look like a victim. Crow's just collateral damage. He'll give his speech about standing up to corruption, and he'll sound like every other reformer who's come through Chicago. Meanwhile, Thompson's got every front page in the city showing how brave he is." He lit a cigar. "That's the thing about Chicago politics. Everyone thinks it's about them. The reformers think they're heroes. The newspapers think they're crusaders. The voters think they're making choices. But really, it's all theater. And I'm the director." The next day, Robert Crow held his press conference as scheduled. He stood in front of the Criminal Courts Building at 54 West Hubbard Street and spoke about integrity, about the rule of law, about how Chicago deserved better than gangster governance. The newspapers buried the story on page 6. Meanwhile, Thompson's bus story ran for a week. Editorials were written about political violence. Preachers mentioned it in sermons. Mothers talked about it at grocery stores. And when people thought about Chicago politics, they didn't think about policy or competence or reform. They thought about that white Stetson floating in the river, and they thought about Big Bill Thompson standing defiant against the criminals who tried to scare him. Robert Crow lost the election to John A. Swanson by 12,000 votes. Swanson, ironically, also had outfit connections, though he was better at hiding them. Crow never held public office again. He went back to private practice, made a good living as a defense attorney, and died in 1958, largely forgotten. Big Bill Thompson ran for mayor again in 1931. He lost to Anton Chermak in a campaign where Capone's support actually hurt him because by then the federal government was closing in, and being Capone's man was political poison. Al Capone himself was convicted of tax evasion in 1931 and sent to federal prison. He never set foot in Suite 430 of the Lexington Hotel again. But here's the thing about that bus in the river. It wasn't really about intimidation. It wasn't really about Thompson or Crow, or even about the election. It was about control. And if you like this video, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. About showing that in Chicago, the outfit decided what stories people read, what they thought about, what they remembered. They didn't need to kill politicians. They just needed to control the narrative. And for one week in October 1930, a mannequin in a white suit and a campaign bus at the bottom of the Chicago River controlled the narrative better than any speech or policy proposal ever could. The bus itself was eventually salvaged, cleaned up, and sold to a transit company downstate. For years afterward, it ran a route between Peoria and Springfield, carrying commuters who had no idea they were riding in a piece of Chicago history. The mannequin disappeared. Some say it was destroyed. Others claim a museum curator saved it, though no museum ever displayed it. Thompson's white Stetson, the one that floated in the river that morning, was dried out and eventually donated to the Chicago History Museum, where it sits in storage to this day, a reminder that in Chicago, sometimes the most powerful messages are the ones that don't kill anyone.